In today's video, we will be making the traditional mitered square, whether it's on an adjustable or a non-adjustable loom. You can use this video tutorial paired with our calculator after you've made a swatch and do one of 3 mitered squares. We're going to cover all 3 of these mitered squares today and how to make them. Welcome to GoodKnit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. So in this video, we are covering our pattern here. We've got our traditional mitered square, and the traditional needle knit mitered square makes a 1-to-1 ratio where you cast on all your stitches for one side and another side, and then you continue to decrease until you get all the way down to 3 stitches. It makes this entire square. Now, normally on needles, you make it 1-to-1 where you purl a row and then knit a row and decrease on that knit row. On needles, you're knitting all of your rows, but because we're on a loom, we have to purl our right side rows to make this garter stitch look. Now, because of the way that looms are set up, sometimes the loom makes a different ratio depending upon our yarn, meaning we have too many rows or too few rows because of the loom gauge or the yarn gauge, and it doesn't work magically like it does on needles. And sometimes we need to make some changes. So we have a pattern that actually has 3 different types. We have a traditional mitered square 1, and then we have a mitered square number 2, and then a mitered square number 3. So the traditional one means that you decrease on every knit row. If you use the number 2, you're decreasing on 4 rows out of 10 repeated rows, okay? If you're using the number 3, you're decreasing on every 3rd row. So we have written all of these out for you in our instructions, and I'm going to cover that in this pattern. To get your supplies, be sure and click down in the link below so that you could get the pattern here on our website. Plus, you can get the link to the calculator. We also have a video, and I'll put a little link up here and down below to jump to the calculator video, and I show you how to figure out exactly what your cast on is going to be. Whether you have an adjustable or non-adjustable loom, that makes no difference. In this video, our tutorial is covering how to make those adjustments, and we're going to go over the pattern. So let's go over this pattern here. Let's assume that you've already gone and used your calculator. You've got your loom choice, whether it be adjustable or non-adjustable. And then these notes in here also talks about blocking and seaming. We're not going to talk about those things in here. You can see those notes on our website. But I want to go over abbreviations real quick. So up on abbreviations, you can use any kind of knit. You can use a U-wrap knit, a true knit, an E-wrap, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. Use the loom and yarn appropriate to the loom, whatever you want. Purl is always P, and then there is something called a CDD or central double decrease, and then there is K2 tog or knit 2 together. There's also P2 tog, purl 2 together, SSK and SSP, which is slip, slip, knit, or purl, and then you have stitches. Now, in the patterns for the adjustable, all the decreases are going to be a central double decrease, whether you're doing it on a knit row or a purl row, okay? These K2 togs and SSK, all of those are if you have a non-adjustable loom, okay? So I'm going to take this sample here and show you how to move around the stitches and work it that way. So when you saw these patterns that I flipped to, these instructions here, you've got mitered square 1, 2, and 3. And notice the cast-ons are blank because you fill in whatever you got from the calculator. If you flip over a few pages, you will see an alternate. So these alternate mitered squares 1, 2, and 3 are the ones that call out using the knit 2 together and the slip, slip, knit. You're just moving the stitches inward and then making a decrease either on a knit row or a purl row. So I'm going to cover these with you today. First, I'm going to talk to you about whether you're casting on adjustable or a non-adjustable, and just some tips to begin. And then we will cover the decreases and how to move those around. This video is not going to sit and say, hey, work this row, pause, work this row, pause. It's not going to do anything like that. You can refer to down below. I have links to how to make those particular increases and decreases. We're not increasing this video, but the basics videos will be located down below should you need cast on information or individual stitches or decreases on those stitches. Okay, so this video assumes that you are not a beginner and you have done some knitting before, including decreasing before. Okay, let's move forward and pause your video, and when you've made your swatch and gotten the numbers that you need, you measured your swatch and you made your calculations, set those aside and come back to this video at this point, and I'll see you then. Before you start casting on, you need to make a decision, and that is if you want this center column here, or if you want to make it look like it's all garter, where it works down the row here, and you go purling and purl this middle or center column and go down the other way, and it has this look here. Or you can knit that center stitch and make this look like all these V-shaped stitches here, and it kind of has a divided look. This one over here is shown on my smaller sample, and you can see it has that knit look alongside it, and then you can see where I made a mistake, and you can see where I purled here, and it absolutely shows how when you're purling it just turns the corner. It's just sort of a bend and then goes over here. So that's how that would work. So make that decision, and then every time you come to that center stitch, you're either going to knit or purl. All right, let's move on with the next part. All right, let's cover casting on and also stitch markers. If you're working with the fixed loom, like this one, what I've done is I've set up a stitch marker, or this is actually a rubber band, on the middle 3 stitches. Okay, so the center 3 stitches, and then I have stitches on the right and left with little stitch markers, and those were just helping me when I started my cast on, so I knew that I had it all correct, and then I marked my center 3. Or you can put this on after you've already cast on. Okay, and then on this one over here, which is adjustable, you're going to want to make sure that your wedge is down or slider is down as far as it can go. If you're using this loom, it won't allow you to work on these last pairs, so you just line it up and tighten. And then when we make our working our 3 stitches together for the center double decrease, the stitches on the outside move to the inside, and then you loosen up the slider and move it down 1, and then tighten it, and then work those 3 stitches all over 1 when you either knit or purl on that row. At the other end down here, you can see that the slider is just right through the bolt, and you could use the rest of the remaining stitches all the way down to these last 3 stitches to complete the square. Okay, so begin your cast on by putting your slip knot on this peg here, and you're going to work double E-wrap cast on going all the way around, working your middle stitch and going all the way to the other side, and then when it lines up to where that stitch marker was, you're done casting on here. So go ahead and do that, and then after you've done your cast on, go in the opposite direction and purl the first row. Every single pattern works the same way. Pause your video and I will see you at that point. All right, so you've cast it on, made your purl row. Now, if you're working on the adjustable loom, go ahead and knit all the way up until 1 stitch before the end on this first rail here, okay? And we're gonna move some things around. If you're working on the non-adjustable loom, we'll get to you in a minute, but don't go ahead and start knitting that round, okay? Or that row. All right, so you are down to the end here, and you're going to be able to see the benefit of the adjustable loom if you are on a non-adjustable, so it's good to see them in the same video. I'm just going to pick up this last stitch here and place it on my middle stitch, or my center peg here with the slider, and then I'm going to go over here and pick up this stitch, okay, from the end on the other rail, and then place it on the slider, okay? And then we want to work this stitch, but before we do, just going to loosen this little wing nut here and slide it in. Okay, so it was down here, and I'm moving it here to line it up. And then now I'm going to hold it in place with my finger back there, tighten this little wing nut on the bolt, and now I can work this stitch. So because I am on a knit row, I am going to knit this stitch. Now, later on, when you're working either on the pattern 2 or the pattern 3, you're going to choose to whether to purl all these stitches together or knit all these stitches together to reduce it. If you are working on the center stitch, like this one being a knit stitch all the way, then every time you're going to use the knit stitch when you work all 3 of these loops over the top one, okay? If you are making a purl row and you're coming back in that other direction, and this is where you're making a decrease, okay, the center double decrease here, then you will make this a purl stitch. I'll show you how to make it a knit or purl, even though I'm working in this direction for a knit. So let's do that now. So we're going to lift up and over like this, just like this, okay? So all of them knitting over, and that's how you make the knit stitch. If this was a purl stitch and we're working the opposite direction, you're just simply putting your yarn all the way under, okay, like this, and then putting your loom tool down here through all 3 of these stitches, and then pull it up. I just pull the yarn up by sliding and pushing on that groove, and then getting my new loop. And then you take them all off and put the new loop back on, and that's how you do the purl stitch. But I am on a knit row, so I'm going to go ahead and do all knits. So let's do that now. Up and over, up and over. I promise this is actually easier when I'm using it on my lap or something, not a table. And then we just turn and continue working this row as usual, whether you're using a traditional knit stitch, a U-wrap knit, an E-wrap. So all the way down, and then you get to the end, and then work your way back with your purl row. Now let's go over to the non-adjustable loom. All right, here is a decreased row for the non-adjustable loom. You have your pegs marked, whether you've got one in the very center for the marked peg or you've stretched it along 3 like I have here. We want to be able to move stitches from this outside of these 3 here. We're going to move them inward on top, and that keeps this center stitch where we're simply just knitting it, okay? Now that's if we're on a knit row. If you're doing the purl row and you want to keep that garter look, then you'll purl that instead of knitting, okay? So that goes back to that very first thing I said, just decide what your center is. So in order to start moving these down, we need to ease some of that tension. So we suggest taking a cable needle of a type that you've got and use that to take off the first 3 stitches and later on the last 3 stitches to help with tension. So I'm just simply going to go to these 3 stitches in order and take them off, okay? Take these stitches off, lay them in the back, and then I can take my tool and start moving things over. I want to take this stitch here, okay, so this is 2 stitches from the middle peg or the marked peg if you've done one, and just picking it up and moving it on top of that one, okay? And then we'll move these over in a moment. So now I can just start moving all of my pegs over, all these stitches toward the middle. This works the same on a purl row as well, okay? All right, so now I'm going to take these stitches and place them on the loom, and now that's really really loose. It's going to be easy. And if you had a lot of stitches, of course, this one is kind of small, so it may not be necessary, but for a lot of stitches, this actually becomes the best way to do it, and it keeps your knitting consistent in tension, okay? Now we're going to move these over here. So we're going to pick up the last 3 stitches. Take them off, let it hang. That's why I love this one with this J-hook. And then take this one here and move it on top. And now you see that we have the single one in the middle, and then the ones outside of that have 2 loops on them, and those stitches are going to work to 2 over 1. And then start moving in your other stitches. Pause your video as you need. And now we'll place these back on. Okay. All right, now you can work your row and you're just simply knitting across. If you're on a purl row, you're simply purling across, and remember to keep this center stitch either knit or purl depending upon the look that you wanted, like we talked about in the very beginning. Okay? All right, so pause your video and meet me back up for the next part. See you soon. So I want to go over these instructions here to go over the actual pattern, and then I'll get you down to the last 3 stitches so you know what to do at the end. Now, whether you're working on an adjustable loom or a non-adjustable loom, let's just go ahead and look at this traditional mitered square one, because as you can see, they're very similar and they're still taking 2 stitches off with every decrease. So it's the same thing. So on the traditional, we've casted on whatever stitches, and the first row was purl as we did, and then the second row was making a decrease. And then you repeat those 2 rows until 3 stitches remain. So that remains where we're going to end the pattern, and I'm going to show you the last part because all of them are the same on the last part. It's a center double decrease on all of them, whether it's non-adjustable or adjustable. All right, let's go to the square number 2. You have the same cast on. You're placing your marker on the center peg. You're purling that first row and decreasing that second row. Okay, that's what we did already. And then in this one, remember, we're decreasing on 4 rows out of 10 that I was talking about in the very beginning. So you're just alternating row 1, purl, row 2, a decrease, row 3, purl, row 4, a decrease, and those are all the decreases on knit rows. Then you purl a row and then knit a row without decreasing. Then it switches to decreasing on purl rows, and you're basically mirroring what you did before. You're purling and making that decrease on row 7, and then row 8 you're knitting the whole row, and then row 9 you're purling that row with a decrease. So 7 and 9 become the decrease rows, and then you end row 10 with a knit. Okay, so that's knit all stitches. Then you repeat those 10 rows, and over time you're going to come down to 3 stitches remaining. And when you get to 3 stitches remaining, that's where we'll resume the video and we'll all do the same thing. So when it comes to number 3 square, of course, again, you're casting on your stitches and you're making your purl row as we did, you're making your knit row with the decreases, and then here's where it changes. You're going to make the purl row without decreases and then another knit row, just like in the number 2 option. So you're not making a decrease on the knit row, and then it switches up to a purl row decrease. So you're only seeing 2 decreases on this repeat here, but it's 6 rows. So technically it's a decrease every 3 rows. So rows 1 through 6, you're going to keep working until you're left with 3 stitches. Okay, and then that's when we'll return. So pause your video and work yours until you have 3 stitches remaining, and I'll meet you there to finish it off. We're back and you have 3 stitches remaining, and all of the patterns are exactly the same. You're going to be purling that row, and then we're going to do a center double decrease on all of them, whether you did a center double decrease or not. And then we're going to pull the working yarn through. So let me show you that. So I'm going to show this to you on the non-adjustable loom because they're the same thing. And if you hadn't been doing it before, here's a reminder. Your yarn is going to be on this side because you need to have purled that whole row. So go ahead and do that if you haven't. And then now we're going to move our stitches in. Just move them on top of the center stitch. Okay. And then take your yarn and go ahead and knit that stitch, working all 3 of these loops up and over. Okay, and now we're going to pull the working yarn through just like this, and we're done. So we'll pull that through, clip our yarn, and we're done making our square. Now I'm kind of hand blocking this in, and then I want to go ahead and weave in my tails. This one can be blocked, And just so you know, this is just a test knit for me and for purposes of the video. So I did not actually make my swatch yet. It actually worked out pretty good. I know this is very tiny. I would not normally make this small of one with this gauge of yarn. This is a super bulky number 6 weight yarn. So anyway, you would just weave in your tails and block according to the instructions. And this one looks the same as on this one. If you find when you're working your knitting and it's all getting pushed in this middle area here, you can come from the back and very carefully use your loom pick to kind of push on that yarn and kind of pull out your knitting and let it pull out, because it will build up. All of your knitting is going to get longer and longer in this part here where the slider is. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on making a traditional loom knit mitered square. And this is a fun one to make it in multiple colors. You can make several of 3 or 4 different colors and put together your own knit looking quilt. You can also make stripes, and we'll do that next week on our video. It'll be much more simplified because you already know how to do this and use the calculator. So I hope that this has put to rest any fears you've had if you've ever made one of these squares that has come out a bit wonky, and now you can make your own perfect one for any loom and any gauge of yarn. We'll see you next time, and happy looming. Bye everyone.
Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.